Hi, I'm Ryan. This is Rhyme Joe Codes, and we're doing our first coding challenge for the channel called Random Picker, and I'm excited to get started. The challenge is to make an app where the user creates a list of items. Each item should include a name and a description. Store the list in the available items.json file. Randomly select one item from the list and display it. Finally, remove the selected item from the available items file and put it in a second file called selecteditems.json. The first thing I want to do is create a function called addAvailableItems. This function will allow users to put in multiple items one after the other, and to do that, we're going to have a loop. Now I will need a way to stop the loop when the user is done entering in items, so I'm going to initialize a variable that I'm calling play. Next, since I'm using a persistent storage method like a JSON file, I want to make sure that the user doesn't already have items in that file from a previous use. Whenever we save the file, it's going to overwrite the entire content, so I want to grab the list of items from the file first and allow the user to add to that list. Then we're going to write the actual loop. Finally, we want to check for content to write, and if there is content, we will write it to the file availableitems.json. So let's get started. Alright, we're going to set our play variable to true. Next, we're going to get the content from availableitems.json. And I'm using the withOpen statement. We could just use the open function and save it to a variable called items, and that's fine, but that would require us to have to close that file manually when we're done using it. Python gives us the withOpen statement, which opens the file and automatically closes it when we are done using it. It's just one less thing that we'll have to worry about. We are saving the file content to the variable items. Next, we're going to create a content dictionary, and we're going to use the JSON load function to dump those items into the content dictionary. So we have to import the JSON library. The withOpen statement does not handle any errors, and if the file doesn't exist, we will get a file not found error, which will stop the program. To capture the file not found error, I'm going to put the withOpen statement inside of a try except block. Now this tells the program to try and open the file, and if the file not found error is triggered, then we're going to create an empty dictionary in which we can add content. Now it's time to write our loop. We're going to use a while loop, which of course will continue looping as long as the play variable is true. Inside the loop, we're going to ask the user for the name of the item and store it in a name variable. We then ask for the description of the item and store that in a description variable. Next, we're going to update the content dictionary by using name as the key and description as the value. And we ask the user if they want to add one more item, and we store their response in the add more variable. And we can give them a little clue and say, hey, either yes or no, but in truth, I'm only looking for yes. So we're going to require a yes, and that's a lowercase yes without any white space. Anything other than that, we will stop the loop. And to check their response, we're going to make their response lowercase by using the lower function and strip away any white space with the strip function. Then I'm going to make sure that it is not yes. And anything other than yes, the play becomes false. So next, we're going to check the content to make sure it's there. And if it is, we're going to use another withOpen statement to open our available items.json file. And this time, however, we're going to use a second parameter, which is the w or the write parameter. We're going to save it to the variable called file. Well, what is different with this statement compared to the previous withOpen statement we used? It is going to look for the file and open it if it exists. But if it does not exist, The W parameter tells the method to create the file. And because it creates the file, we will not get a file not found error, which means we do not need to put this statement in a try except block. And now that we've opened the file and called it, we're going to use JSON dump function to dump the content into our file. Then we're going to add an indent of 4. Now this just makes the JSON file a little bit cleaner when we look at it. Finally, we need to call our function add available items. So let's take a second and get a closer look. I've made a function called add available items. The first variable, play, is the loop control. As long as it's set to true, it will continue to loop. Then I've added a try except block to capture the file not found error that the withOpen function may encounter. Now the open function will attempt to find and open the file. If it is successful, it will load the file content into a dictionary called content. If the file is not found, we're going to capture that flag from the file not found error. Then we're going to create an empty dictionary called content. Next is the loop itself. Now I'm using a while loop that checks if the play variable is true. I ask the user for the name and description inputs. The responses are saved to the name and description variables. And I update the content dictionary with the name as the key and description as the value. After that, I ask the user if they want to enter one more item. And when I check the response, I use the lower function to make the input lowercase and the strip function to remove any white space. And I'm only checking that the input is not lowercase yes without any white space. If it is something other than that, I set the play variable to false. Now this breaks the loop and allows the program to continue to the next line of code. So the final step of the add available items function is saving the whole content dictionary to file. Then the open function with the W or write attribute will attempt to open the file available items.json. If it is not found, it will create it and no error will be flagged. Once the file is open, the content dictionary is dumped into a JSON format with the formatted indent level of 4. And the indent will make the file a little bit easier to read when we open it. The last thing I do is to call the add available items function. Now I need to be careful with my indentions because Python uses the level of indentation to determine how each of the lines of code fit together. That's one reason why I like this particular IDE, because it shows the vertical lines of indentation which help me put things in the right place. Or at least they help me find it more quickly when I don't put something at the correct indentation. Now let's go ahead and run the program. We're going to enter in an item name. Let's just keep it simple. We'll call it item 1 and give it a simple description as well. And I'm going to do another one, so yes. Let's do item 2. And this time I'm going to say no. I see a file. Let's click on that. So the program worked. It looped for us, it created an available items.json file, and it inserted the 2 items that we gave it. So how about we go back and add a couple more items and see if it will download these 2 from the file. We'll follow the same pattern and call it item 3 and add a general description. We'll add one more and call it item 4. Now we're going to go ahead and say no here to end the loop and check on the file. Sure enough, we have 4 items, so we did not overwrite item 1 and item 2. The program grabbed the items list, added to it, and then saved it back to the file. So let's check on our progress so far. The user can create a list of items. Each item has a name and a description, and the list is stored in a file called available_items.json. I'll say we're doing pretty good so far. Next, I'm going to create a new module that I'm calling items. And I want to take everything dealing with items and put it in this module to have it a little more organized. So we're going to take the brand new function we just wrote called add available items, including the import of the JSON library, and we're going to bring that over to items and drop it in that file. Well, here's our new module. We're going to add to it as we go, but this is where we are right now. So the next thing is to go back to Random Picker, import the items module, and then select the add available items from that module by typing items.addAvailableItems. Let's run it. All right, everything is working. I'm going to go ahead and create a new function. It's going to be my main function that I'm calling Random Picker. And the first thing I want to do is get the content from available items file. Now, when I start to think about this, the only place that I'm opening a file right now is inside the add available items. And I really don't need to use the add available items method if I have items already in the file. So since I need to be able to open a file outside of the add available items method, I'm going to create a new module and call it item files. This module is going to handle communicating with the files. This will allow me to build a method inside the module that I can use in multiple locations to open files without repeating code. So we're going to copy and paste the try except block. Let's wrap this in a method called getFileContent that accepts a parameter of file name. Once we clean up these indentations to make sure that it's all set properly, we'll just have to replace the available items.json file name with the parameter file name. The next thing we have to do is import the JSON library so that this function will work properly. And then we return the content dictionary. Now this is the complete getFileContent method, and we can close this out. We can go ahead and delete this code snippet because it's in our new method. We'll import the item files module and call it files. And then all we have to do now to get our content is to call files.getFileContent and give it the file name availableItems.json. Now we can open any file by calling getFileContent from the item files module. It will return the content in a dictionary if the file exists, or it will return an empty dictionary if the file does not exist. Let's go back to the Random Picker. We need to import the item files module using the short name files. Come down here to our content by calling files.getFileContent and giving it the available items.json file name. And now I want to print the content dictionary. I'm going to get rid of this add available items for now, and we will go ahead and go call Random Picker and run the program. And we have successfully returned our content dictionary, and there are 4 items just like we were expecting. And I'm just going to add a quick note here that this is where we call the Random Picker function. And next we're going to check if there are items to choose. We're going to use an if statement to check the content dictionary. If it has something in it, we're going to get the random selection and show it in the terminal. If there is nothing in the content dictionary, we're going to let the user know that there are no items to choose, and then we're going to call the add available items method that we made earlier. Now before we code this, I'm going to go ahead and comment out this block for just a moment. Then I'm going to call the items method for our content dictionary and print that. What I want us to see is that it's creating a dict_items object with a list of items as tuples. Now the list of items as tuples is exactly what we want. What we don't want is this object because the dict_items object is not subscriptable. And the method I'm wanting to use to get our random selection requires something that is. So all we have to do is cast our content items as a list. We do that by submitting the content items to the list method. Let's print it now and we'll see that we have a list of tuples that's no longer inside of the dict_items object. we're going to use a method that picks one of these tuples as our random selection. So we're going to go ahead, close this out, and uncomment this, then save our key value pair into two variables, key and value. We need to import the random library, so I'm going to let my IDE do it for me, and it'll import it right here at the top of the file. Now I can choose my method from the library. I'm going to choose choice. It says that the choice method requires a non-empty sequence, and we have a non-empty sequence right here with our list. We're going to copy and paste that down here, and then now we're going to print again. Let's use a formatted string to show the key value pair. And there it is. A random choice chose item 1 as the random selection. So I'm going to go ahead and finish formatting this string. I'm going to just say chosen item is name and description. And I'm going to use some line breaks to complete the formatting. So we'll play that. And there you go. It chose item 1 again, which is not uncommon with a random pick. So if content is empty, we want to print to the screen that there are no items to choose. And then we're going to suggest that we add an item. And we're going to call, well, let's fix this first. All right, here we go. Correct that indentation. Now we want to go and call our add available items method, which is in the items module, if you'll remember right there. Let's go back and call that. We're going to type in items.addAvailableItems, and then we're going to come in here and delete these items so that we can force an empty content dictionary. All right, let's run it. All right, there we have it. There are no items to choose. Add an item. Let's call it item 101 and give it a description. We'll say no, and then run it. There it is. Let's go back and add our items. And just for fun, we'll keep item 101 in there. Let's go back to the random picker and continue. Now that we have a list, we want to ask the user if they would like to pick a random item now. But we want to be able to do it where they can pick multiple items. So we're going to create a loop. In the loop, we're going to add a variable called pick, and we're going to ask the user, would you like to pick a random item? Yes or no? And we're going to insist that they enter yes or no this time. So we're going to check for both cases. And if neither case is given, we're just going to politely ask them to tell us yes or no. So let's check for yes first. We're going to take the response, make it lowercase, and then strip away any white space. And if it is indeed yes, we're going to call random picker again. Yeah, we're going to make a recursive call here so that we can pull from the content dictionary and pick an item. Now what we also have to do is set the play variable to false so that we don't create an infinite loop and, break the space-time continuum. Next, we're going to check to see if the response is no. And if it is no, we're just going to print goodbye. And then we set the play variable to false. And this is where we say, if it's not one of these, please give us yes or no. Hi, I want to interrupt myself for just a quick minute to let you know that I know there are some redundancies here. Okay, when I watched it back, I saw them and it bothered me enough that I wanted to mention it. Now, not enough to actually reshoot the video, but enough to mention it. Okay, so the first thing is I should have put the lower function and the strip function on the response itself before checking for yes or no. And there really isn't a reason to do it separately. And the second thing is setting the play variable to true if the user gives a response other than yes or no is definitely not necessary. When you follow the logic, the only possible value for play in this moment is true. Okay, so I apologize for the redundancy and for any lack of sleep that this may have caused our hyper-focused viewers. And all I can say is that these have been refactored out and just not on this video. So is that enough? I don't know, but I hope it helps. Now it's time to remove the selected item from the available items JSON file and put it in the selected items JSON file. But we're actually going to do that up here after we check to see if there is content. If there is not any content, there's nothing to move anyways. All right, let's separate these and tackle them one at a time. First thing we're going to do is remove the item from our content dictionary. Then we're going to save that dictionary back to the file available_items.json. The next thing we are going to do is get the selected items.json file content and save it to a dictionary. Update the dictionary with the selected key value pair, and then save that dictionary back to the selected items.json file. Now let's open up our items file module and make a new method called writeFile. Let's give it a couple of parameters, file name and data. So let's go over to the items module, and here's the code that we want to grab and put into our writeFile method. We'll go ahead and copy that, paste it here, straighten up the indentation, and change out content with the parameter data. And then we're going to remove the available items.json and replace it with the file name parameter. So now we can write the file with any file name and any content. So let's replace this, and we're just going to call files, which is our items file module, and choose the writeFile method. And then we're going to add the file name and give it the content. So that's going to write to file, no problem. Let's go back to our random picker and go ahead and work on writing to file. But first we're going to remove that item. We're going to use the delete or del keyword with the key from the dictionary. So just a quick reminder that we get our content from the file available_items.json. Then we get our key value pair from the random choice selection. Then we just take that key and we give it back to the delete keyword, and it's going to remove it from the content dictionary. Now, all we have to do is save that content back to the file used in the files.writeFile method that we just created. So let's go on and get the selected items from the selected items.json file. We're going to use files.getFileContent method, and we're going to supply it with the file name. Now again, this is going to see if it can find the selected items.json file. If it does not find it, the method will just give us back an empty dictionary. Then we can add to that dictionary that we get, well, either the content or the empty one, by updating it with our key value pair. And then we're simply going to write it back to the file by using our files writeFile method. Now let's run it and see exactly what we have. All right, there's our chosen item. This here, though, is a little peculiar. It's not exactly what I was expecting. I'm going to have to figure out what's going on. That should not be in that spot. I'm going to look into that a little more in just a moment. First, let's look at our files. In the selected items file, we have item 1. And if we go to our available items file, we will see that item 1 is missing. So it seems to be working the way that we want it to. Now, I think I know why this is popping up when I don't want it to. Let's look at the file. Yeah, okay. The while loop is actually coming after the else block, and I want it to be inside of it. So I'm going to have to correct that indentation and push that over and get that inside the else block. And that should fix it. So I want to clean this up a little bit and add a couple of methods to our items module. The first one is remove item. We're going to have an items parameter and a key. And we're going to just grab that snippet right there, and this will remove the item and write it to the file. And I'm going to go back and call it. So the goal is to have the items module control the functionality with the files. Now I'm going to create another method called add selected item with a key parameter and a value parameter. We're going to grab that other snippet we just wrote and put that in our new method. Clean it up a little bit. And this one's actually ready to go without any changes. So I'm going to go back and call it. And we'll add one more method and call it get items. It will have a parameter of file name. All right, let's go back to random pickers. We're going to copy this and go, well, I accidentally cut it, but we'll fix that. We're going to return this and we're going to change that to file name parameter. Okay, now we'll go back to random picker content variable. Call items.getItems method by giving it the available items.json file name. And I just want to point out that we are no longer dependent on the items file module, and that's why files is grayed out here. I'll go back and refactor this out at some point in the future. We don't really need this print statement anymore, so we can get rid of that too. Now, let's run it. So it shows item 101. Take a look at our selected items.json file. And sure enough, there's two items and neither one of them are in the available items anymore. So let's just run it a few more times and see if we can't empty out that completely. All right, let's check it really quickly. So we have all of these in the selected items and nothing in the available items. Let's go ahead and clear the terminal and rerun the program. There are no items to choose. Add an item. Let's call it new item. Give it a short description. No. And there's our question. Fantastic. It picked the new item because that's the only one we had. Let's check our progress now. The user can create a list of items. Each item has a name and a description, and the list is stored in a file called availableitems.json. It randomly selects one item from the list and displays it. It removes the selected item from the availableitems.json file and puts it in the selected items.json file. So it looks like the program is fully functioning now. Hey, thanks for watching. And I would love to know what you would have done differently. And if you'd like to, leave a comment below.